For American lawyer and entrepreneur Sanford Ballard Dole, yes, that Dole, Hawaii was a pineapple-flavored gold mine, and he used his influence to push the U.S. toward taking over the islands in the late 1890s. From coups to house arrests to abrupt declarations of power, Dole and his company almost single-handedly ended the Hawaiian monarchy. So, today we're uncanning how Hawaii was stolen by a fruit juice company. But first, make sure you're subscribed to the Weird History channel. After that, leave a comment and let us know what other American history you want to hear about next. All right, dreams come true in blue Hawaii. If you're a pineapple magnate anyway. Before we get into Dole's dastardly doings, here's a crash course on all things Hawaii. The Hawaiian Islands were first populated by Polynesian migrants around 400 CE. Tribal structures were established, with individual chiefdoms maintaining autonomy but engaging in diplomacy and even battles with each other. The isolated existence was maintained until the arrival of Captain James Cook in the 1770s, who called Hawaii the Sandwich Islands, presumably because he had low blood sugar when it was time to name the discovery. Cook perished in a dispute with natives during his second visit. Whether it was about calling them the Sandwich Islands, none can say. But Europeans continued to make periodic visits to the islands over the remainder of the 18th century. During this time, the first ruler of Hawaii, King Kamehameha, launched military campaigns against his neighbors, conquering the chiefdoms on every major island and unifying them under his authority. He enlisted assistance from European and American traders during these conquests, which led to his kingdom undergoing cultural and economic changes. We bet this is when he told people, "One day you shall name a Dragon Ball Z move after me." Kamehameha died in 1819 and was succeeded by his two sons, Kamehameha II and III. During their reigns, European and American merchants continued to visit the Hawaiian Islands, soon setting up permanent settlements. Missionaries brought written language, as well as disease that decreased the population of the islands by 23%, which was less helpful. The Kamehameha lineage continued through Kamehameha V. Then, in the late 19th century, a series of successions led Hawaii to its first ruling queen, Lili'oukalani, who took the throne in 1891. And her attempts to retain Hawaii's power would begin toppling the Dole-whipped dominoes. The American settler presence in Hawaii became increasingly influential upon their culture, political structure, and economics. During all this, a little thing called the American Civil War was also happening. Among other more serious things, the war interrupted the flow of sugar in the country, so the sweet-loving U.S. turned to Hawaii. In 1875, the U.S. and Hawaii signed the Reciprocity Treaty, which allowed the U.S. to import sugar without paying any tariffs. In exchange, Hawaii was able to bring in U.S. goods such as meats, metals, books, and furs without paying duties. The treaty also gave the U.S. exclusive trade rights with Hawaii, essentially paving the way for an American monopoly on Hawaiian sugar. So that's why Mr. Monopoly's mustache is white. A few years later, in 1887, Hawaiian King David Kalakaua was forced at actual gunpoint to sign what became known as the Bayonet Constitution. The treaty was written by the misnamed Hawaiian League, a group of American lawyers and businessmen, many of whom were affiliated with the sugar and pineapple industries. This document limited King Kalakaua's power by establishing a new cabinet and legislature. It also gave voting rights solely to individuals that, quote-unquote, met certain financial requirements, which is to say, wealthy non-Hawaiians. By 1891, when Queen Lili'oukalani took the throne, Americans possessed 4/5 of the arable land in Hawaii, and that pesky Hawaiian League wanted to go the full 5/5 and take it all, forcing Hawaii to be part of the United States. The Queen responded by trying to reverse the Bayonet Constitution and re-establish power to the Hawaiian monarchy, which the Americans didn't like so much. Only this time, they didn't just throw tea into the ocean. Born in Hawaii in 1844, Sanford B. Dole was the son of Protestant missionaries who settled on the island. After attending college in the U.S., he went back to Hawaii to practice law, serve in the Hawaiian legislature, and take a seat on the Hawaiian Supreme Court, and foster the movement that eventually led to the Bayonet Constitution. Also, his beard was buck wild. Look at that thing. If you've lost your car keys, check Dole's beard first. In 1893, Dole took things even further. Alongside other businessmen, Dole recruited the U.S. minister in Hawaii, John Steeves, to stage a coup of Queen Lili'oukalani. They called themselves the Committee of Safety. perhaps facetiously, and they forced the Queen to step down under house arrest in Honolulu's Iolani Palace. On February 1, 1893, Stevens called Hawaii a protectorate of the United States and recognized the new provisional government formed by Dole. Lili'oukalani understandably thought this was not cool. The coup justified their actions by labeling her as corrupt and anti-democratic, and in an attempt to clear her name and regain her power, Lili'oukalani went way above Dole's head to the President of the United States and eternal trivia answer, Grover Cleveland. And Cleveland agreed with Lili'oukalani, saying, "By an act of war, a substantial wrong has been done." He called for Lili'oukalani to be reinstated immediately. However, Congress rejected Cleveland's plea, and Dole and his cronies put Lili'oukalani on trial for treason in 1895. Lili'oukalani was found guilty and sentenced to 5 years hard labor and fined $5,000. She never served the labor sentence, but remained on house arrest until she signed a document abdicating the throne. Kinda sounds like extortion when you say it like that. When Sanford Dole and his associates took Hawaii for themselves, they advanced a treaty of annexation to the U.S. Congress in hopes of turning the islands into an official state. President Benjamin Harrison sent the treaty to the Senate in 1893, but in a bold political maneuver, he died before it was ratified. And President Cleveland, whom we already know was not a fan of the Committee of Safety, actually sent an ambassador to Hawaii to restore power back to the Hawaiians. However, Dole just straight up refused to relinquish his power, declaring himself President of the Republic of Hawaii. Cleveland, perhaps thinking of the recent-ish Civil War, decided it wasn't worth it to use force against Dole and let the man stay, while continuing to squash any and all annexing efforts. But after Cleveland left office and President William McKinley moved into the White House in 1897, you better believe Dole jumped on that like your cool cousin on a pogo stick. Another treaty of annexation went to Congress, but was voted down after the Hawaiian Patriotic League, a group of native Hawaiians, appealed to Congress to reject it. A frustrated Dole, apparently figuring, if you want something done, you have to do it yourself, traveled to Washington, D.C. in 1898 to personally push for the effort. President McKinley supported Dole's wishes, but knew he didn't have the two-thirds majority necessary to pass a treaty through the Senate. So, rather than deciding to leave this whole annexing business alone, the two men exploited every loophole they could. President McKinley called for a joint resolution of Congress. Citing the Spanish-American War as justification, the U.S. Congress finally, on July 12, 1898, ratified the Hawaiian Islands, with the express purpose of using them as a naval base and fueling station during the conflict, of course. 2 years after this annexing, Hawaii officially became a U.S. territory. And who should serve as the first governor? But Sanford B. Dole and his wily beard. Dole served as governor between 1900 and 1903, after which he returned to practicing law and worked as a judge. James Drummond Dole, Sanford's first cousin once removed, much like Sanford once removed Queen Lili'oukalani from her throne, arrived in Hawaii in 1899, eager to claim his family's newfound power. He had studied horticulture and agriculture at Harvard and was ready to use that skill to exploit Hawaii for everything it had. James later recalled that he came to the islands with some notion of growing coffee. The territorial government, which again was run by his family, was offering homestead lands to people willing to farm them, and I had heard that fortunes were being made in Hawaiian coffee. James began homesteading a 64-acre farm in Oahu, about 25 miles from Honolulu, in August of 1900. After some experimentation, I concluded that it was better adapted to pineapples than to coffee, peas, pigs, or potatoes, and accordingly concentrated on that fruit. So that's why they call it pineapple concentrate. California businessmen began joining James in Hawaii to grow and cultivate pineapples, prompting him to open a cannery, something others had attempted and failed. And James's initial business, the Hawaiian Pineapple Company, was deemed a foolhardy venture which had been tried unsuccessfully before and was sure to fail again. But if you've learned anything about the Dole family, it's that they did not know the meaning of the phrase, "it was sure to fail again." Over the next 20 years, James Dole's company, which we now know as simply Dole, amassed great success. As James put it, "Our plantings in 1923, if extended in a straight line, would have made a double row from New York to San Francisco." That's a lot of fruit cocktails. Since then, Dole has merged with Irish food suppliers Total Produce to own 114,000 acres of production across its 250 global facilities. They enjoy success as the #1 global fresh produce brand. And Dole Plantation, a compound in Oahu, has constructed a pineapple hedge maze, dubbed the world's largest maze by the Guinness Book of World Records. Some say that if you get lost in that maze, you can whisper for Sanford B. Dole's luxurious beard to guide you back home. As for the ongoing efforts of Native Hawaiians since Dole's coup, President Bill Clinton signed the Apology Resolution in 1993, which formally apologized to Native Hawaiians on behalf of the people of the United States for the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii. Additionally, the Native Hawaiian Government Reorganization Act was introduced to Congress in 2009 by Hawaiian Senator Daniel Akaka. The bill was meant to provide a process for the reorganization of the single Native Hawaiian governing entity and the reaffirmation of the special political and legal relationship between the United States and that Native Hawaiian governing entity for purposes of continuing a government-to-government relationship. So, in other words, two governments, one bill. However, due to protests from some Native Hawaiian activists angered that the bill didn't pursue true independence from the U.S. and the general bureaucracy of Congress, including what Senator Akaka referred to as misleading attacks and unprecedented obstruction, the bill never passed. So what do you think? Are you going to think twice before buying your next pineapple? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.